The Wurth 400 race in Dover was not one to remember for Hendricks Motorsports and their drivers. Although Kyle Larson was able to finish second, the result was disappointing as it looked as though he could take the victory. Unfortunately for Larson, Denny Hamlin won his third race of the season in Dover. After the race, Larson explained how difficult it was to attempt an overtake due to the new next-gen cars. These modern cars were designed to increase the overall downforce and make it easier to take on corners. Given that NASCAR is planning to increase the number of street races on the calendar, they'll need to develop a car that can take corners at high speeds to make the race entertaining for the fans. However, by increasing the downforce, they made the car more aerodynamically sensitive. This has made it almost impossible to drive right behind another car. When attempting to do so, the cars start to vibrate more than usual, making it difficult to gain enough momentum to attempt an overtake. Trying to take advantage of this, drivers tend to block the car behind more often than not. Although blocking the car behind gives them a good slipstream, as mentioned earlier, it is impossible to gain enough momentum to overtake. It's so easy as the leader to shut off the air to the guy behind you at a track like Dover, Larson said after finishing second. Especially where it's low on grip as the run progresses. It's a product of the car. Larson thinks he's discovered a potential solution to this issue. While other drivers have suggested changes to the aero package, horsepower, and more, Larson thinks the problem can be solved by removing the rear-view camera on the cars. In 2022, NASCAR decided to add a rear-view camera in addition to the rear-view mirror, which has been on the car for decades. Thanks to the camera, the driver is more aware of the position of the car behind. Due to this, they're able to block the car behind as they attempt to get some clean air to gain momentum. During the final few laps, Larson was attempting to get close to Hamlin in an attempt to win the race. However, Hamlin was able to see the number 5 car coming for him and timed the block perfectly. Larson thinks he would have had a better chance if Hamlin didn't have the rear-view camera to see him coming. Apart from Kyle Larson, the other Hendricks Motorsports drivers also had a frustrating race. Bowman was also fighting with the leaders up to a point. He was challenging his teammate Kyle Larson to win the second stage of the race. However, this time, Larson used his rear-view camera to block Bowman from getting past. Bowman got incredibly frustrated with this as he was not able to get past the number 5 car. He came on the radio to say, "Much appreciated, 5 car," Bowman said on his radio. Naturally, Bowman cannot expect any driver, including his teammate, to just park the car to let him by. And this is exactly what his crew chief told him. "He's not going to pull over for you. You've got to go fucking earn it," Kevin Hamlin responded. "Whining about a teammate racing for the win. Just shut the fuck up and drive it. He's our guy, man." Last weekend was an incredibly hot race at Dover. This led to higher track temperatures and even higher temperatures in the cockpit. Naturally, tensions were running high during the race. However, Kevin Hamlin did have a point. Larson is not going to just let someone pass because the cars don't do well in the dirty air. If Bowman wants to get past Larson, he'll have to come up with a proper strategy to attack him before the stage win. Towards the end of the second stage, we saw Bowman attempt to get some clean air at the top. However, in taking a higher line than Larson, he was not able to find the grip and lost momentum. This allowed Larson to pull away while Bowman was left to defend against Denny Hamlin, who had just come up behind him. Eventually, Denny managed to get past Bowman and Larson to win the race. Here's what Bowman had to say after the race. "I was a little too tight at the top," Bowman said. "I needed to get around Larson because I wasn't versatile enough to move back down. And then it got to be me more defending Hamlin for second place than anything. Bummer there. After that, we just weren't as good. Okay day, not the greatest, but we'll move on." When asked if there was any tension between Bowman and his crew chief, Kevin Hamlin, Bowman immediately said, "No," he said politely. "I don't have any clickbait for you there, buddy." Bowman went on to finish 8th in the race. During the final stage, he was not able to keep up with the leaders. There's no doubt that the next-gen cars played their part in taking Bowman out of contention for the win. So far, Bowman has not had the best couple of years in the sport. His last race win came on March 6, 2022. There is no doubt that Bowman is one of the drivers struggling to get results in these Gen 7 cars. If his current performance continues, it is unlikely that HMS would want to keep him in the team for much longer. Another HMS driver who had a disastrous race was William Byron. The number 24 driver was hoping to compete for the race win as he started on the second row of the grid. However, towards the end of the race, Byron was involved in an accident that pushed him out of the race. With just over 70 laps to go in the race, some drivers decided to start a third line to go for the win. One of the drivers starting this third line was Bubba Wallace, but as he was attempting to switch lanes, he got tagged by Zane Smith, which sent Bubba spinning into William Byron and Christopher Bell. All three of these drivers had to retire from the race due to this incident. During the previous race in Talladega, we saw something similar happen as a third line started to form on the top of the track. Some drivers believe that the Gen 7 cars make it impossible to form a third line in an attempt to win the race. In order to go for a third line, the drivers will need to have complete control of the car as they switch lanes while moving in close quarters. A single mistake could start a chain reaction, sending several cars spinning out of the race. Since these modern cars don't do well in dirty air, the drivers find it very difficult to control the car as they shift lanes. In Talladega, the accident happened a few laps before the end, and once again on the very last lap of the race. Last weekend in Dover, the accident happened with 70 laps to go. This season, we've seen a lot of dramatic last laps in almost every race. This is because the drivers tend to form a third line towards the end of the race. As stated earlier, these cars become very vulnerable while switching lanes in dirty air. NASCAR will have to do something to fix this issue with these cars. If they're not able to, it could affect the quality of racing going forward. Although they want to increase the number of street races as it has more appeal to the fans, the drivers prefer the classic NASCAR tracks like the ones in Talladega, Atlanta, and Daytona. So NASCAR will need to make the car become more compatible to these tracks as well. The fourth Hendricks Motorsports driver, Chase Elliott, had a comparatively decent race. After starting 29th on the grid, he managed to climb up the ladder to finish 5th during the race. Out of the 4 HMS drivers in the championship, 3 of them have already qualified for the playoffs. Kyle Larson has won 1 race and is the current points leader of the regular season so far. Chase Elliott has also won a race and sits 3rd in the points table. William Byron is not as high as Elliott or Larson in the points table, however he has won 3 races this season so far. The only driver not to qualify for the playoffs yet is Alex Bowman. With only 15 more races to go in the regular season, Bowman will have to get that race win soon. Given that Bowman is sitting at 9th in the points table, he might not be able to qualify for the playoffs if he does not get a win soon. Hence, he will need to find his form and start to impress the team. Or else, he will not only miss the playoffs but could also be kicked out of Hendricks Motorsports from next year. With only 15 races to go, do you think Alex Bowman will be able to win a race to secure his playoff spot this season? Also, what do you think NASCAR should do to solve the problems that are faced by the Gen 7 cars? Post your thoughts in the comments section below.